we look at songs like Cisco Kid and Summer and Low Rider and World is a Ghetto and Spill the Wine. I mean, these are songs that have formed the soundtrack of people's lives.
Well,
And
yeah,
they're never going to go away.
and I'm honored for that. I feel blessed. Believe me, I feel very blessed for that. And one problem that I do have to deal with, and that's when I, all the new material that I have, I won't play any of it unless radio gets on top of it. But I'm not holding my breath. But I would not want to go listen to any of my favorite groups and they're playing a song that I never heard before. I came there to reminisce, to have a flashback to what made me love their music in the beginning, and so I'm always a fan to a lot of groups, and I want to hear the old stuff, unless I heard your new stuff on the radio every day and it was just, pretty much pushed down my throat. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. But that's not the same for you, though, Rick, because obviously, even with today, we've heard material that never was probably played on the radio. At least I could speak for the States.
Yeah.
But, you're out there playing it. And
well, I mean, I'm not looking to argue.
Oh, no, and there's nothing wrong with
that.
that.
But I kind of feel like the other side of the coin is that an artist has a responsibility to themselves, too. So, and sometimes your responsibility, you have to kick your audience's ass just a little bit, I'll let them kick mine, for sure, and if they want to hear certain kinds of things, I will respect that and try to deliver that. But by the same token, I feel like part of my raison d'etre, why am I here? Like, I'm supposed to be writing, I'm supposed to be creative, and I don't want that to turn into something that's just, myself locked in a room making music for myself. I think music is best when it's shared, when it's a communal kind of thing. And so sometimes you have to kind of reach out to your audience and say, come on, look, I gave you 15 or 20 minutes here and I made you happy. Just give me 5. let me try this and let me see how it works, And often those turn out to be the sweetest, nicest moments with people that are your best fans. They're the ones that have the most wide open mind for me. So they'll say, no, Rick, you go ahead, and then later they'll post things on my website and they'll say, you know what, I'll go for a night of nothing but the new stuff. I just want to hear you doing what you do now as an artist who's older. Because that's the other part of it, Lonnie, is like, you don't want to always have to be living in the past, right? And sometimes that soundtrack of other people's lives, that's their past. And you go, well, I have a present, and I have a future, and I want to try and make that art, that music, be now something that we can share. I don't want to have to be locked in a closet,
Yeah, I like that. My only problem with that is that I love, even if I was painting, I love taking something old and recreating it. In other words, I can take my old music and jam with some other people, or have some people come up and jam with me and take that and recreate it again. In fact, most of our music that you heard in the past is music that was it was born out of the last song. So it was already a jam. And so and most of the music I don't even write in the studio. I just go ahead and create it on stage anyway. So if there's something new that came out of Cisco Kid or Lowrider or any jams, that's a song. If it was recorded or if I can remember it, then that's they heard it anyway. But like totally new material that they've never heard before. That's the only thing that bothers me. But everyone's different.
Yeah,
every musician is different. Every artist,
And what you just described to me, it's like. And there's a reason why your band would play at jazz places and blues kinds of things, because there's a type of music that's about improvising. It's about that moment of creation and creativity. But as a writer, sometimes what you want to do is have that process of very careful composition leading towards something, but that's a whole different vibe. That's you don't get James Taylor, from jamming. it's not going to happen. He's a very careful writer, you know. Yeah.
Well, no, he's totally right. There's some people that can jam and create music out of that jam, and some that can't. For instance, when the last night that Jimi Hendrix jammed with us, you know, the night before he passed away, when we were Eric Burden War at Ronnie Scott's, we created a whole new song from Mother Earth. But of course, the tapes back then, you know, the 4 tracks got lost somewhere in the mix. But that was a new song. That was a song that was recorded by Eric Burden War featuring Jimi Hendrix, you know, but it got lost. It was a jam.
Yeah.
But we could have taken that and boom, could have been a record. You wouldn't have known it was Mother Earth,
Right.
the way we jammed it. But it came out of Mother Earth. But that's how that's how he was able to do it. It's just the old school, I would say, mid-60s, late 60s of a group like us who never really learned how to write. Our writing was a button. The old buttons back then, that's the only way we knew, you know. And I really appreciate a person like yourself who can sit down, like Dylan and all these, you know, sit down and actually write music that just takes you to a whole nother place, and, you know, like a movie. And I totally respect, I take my hat off. Oh. No, I take my hat off to you, man, totally, you know. I salute you. You know, everyone's different, like I said, you know, and so.
Were you
What
a
do we have
Hendrix?
in common? You said
Oh.
something.
So, you know, you heard who he said he had on his new album. That young kid, Joe Walsh. Well, Joe had have only been about 5 or 10, and I guess when he wrote Rocky Mountain Way, which you guys covered, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Did you?
Like that was when in Canada when we were starting out. The FM radio could get you to a certain point, but you really couldn't start selling a lot of tickets and a lot of records unless you were able to cross over with a single to AM radio. And we didn't really write anything like that. We were very much a sort of an arena rock FM radio type band. And so, but we'd started out as a bar band in '75, and we played typical bar band kind of tunes when we first started, you know, some Hendrix tunes and, you know, Deep Purple set and a bunch of Led Zeppelin, and Rocky Mountain Way was a tune that we used to do, you know, third set when everybody was fairly pie-eyed, you know, and it worked. So in the studio we did it, and the record company goes, "Oh, this is great," you know, and we put it out, and it became a big hit in Canada on the radio, and it allowed us to sort of move from sort of playing bars and small theaters up and into arenas now, because now we were on the radio everywhere.
It's quite a jump.
That's pretty much how Eric Burden got with us, was the fact that he was with MGM Records, and he had a terrible time with them, obviously. And when he got with us, we were already a made band, and we started jamming at a lot of the parties. And a lot of the parties had people in there like Joplin, Morrison, and people who I didn't know at the time, because I was like straight out of Compton. Young, big afro, bell bottoms with an attitude. And and Eric thought it was funny because I didn't know them. I knew who the British Invasion were. I knew who he was. The Animals, you know, the Beatles, you know, the Bowie, you know, I knew who they were. But anyway, we were jamming on the piano, and of course the song was Spill the Wine. It was just the track. The track was already done, but to write the song, we had issues about that until I accidentally spilled wine into the studio board. $25,000 I had to pay, but thank God we had a hit from that, and that's what gave us the idea for the title of the song, "Spill the Wine, Spill the Wine, Spill the Wine." So it went on from there. But just to give you an example on how we made songs, I always had an issue about sitting down trying to create a song, and I envy people like you that can just sit there and come up with stuff, man, off the top of your head. But that's why you're also a teacher, because it's in your head, it's in your mind. Sometimes that's why some people collaborate. You know, I would have to collaborate with someone like you. I would sit down and play and come up with an idea that can give you an idea, you know, and then maybe I can come up with a theme. Maybe you allow me to spill some coffee, or you like almost spilled this water on them, and then we write. You know, so That's how I do it. I do it the dumb way.
Wow, that's a good way.
Was that an easy transition to make for you to, for those who don't know, Rick, are you currently still doing it? You did it for quite a while.
Teach.
Yeah, at
Yeah.
Humber College in
I
Toronto.
still do, yeah.
Still
yeah.
do?
I have a songwriting course that I do 2 days a week. I used to teach music business, and that was a very all-consuming kind of course, and I had all the third years, you know, so it was a fairly large, it was a lot of marking and grading is the way to sort of bring it. So, and I wanted to get away from that. So the songwriting is kind of good because it happens as a workshop kind of environment, and I can just come up with grades sort of off the top of my head, so I don't have to, and based on their work and stuff. And the other thing I used to do was directed studies. So the fourth year students that are headed for their degree would be doing their own recordings. And that's like functioning like a record company A&R man for, you know, and each guy would get 8 students and 9 students each. So that was a lot of work, you know, and so I cut back on some of that stuff. But I still do the songwriting.
There's still some people out there that still need your help. And this young man right here, Evans, the guitar player.
Oh, yeah.
There he is.
Right on.
So they're still out there.
Oh, yeah,
you
no, I hear you.
And are you still doing the acoustic director at the Song Studio, songwriting? You
Yeah,
did that, for 11
that still
years,
happens, yeah. And we're at the Royal Conservatory in Toronto, and it happens in July. It's just for a week.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I still like to, you know, I've been gradually, in the last little while, trying to withdraw from that so I can have a little bit more time to be creative. And you know, you made writing sound like it's something that just comes right off the top, but of course, writing is sometimes it takes a long time. As I often tell students, you know, the most valuable thing to human beings is a diamond, and that you move mountains of crap in order to get to that little tiny piece of carbon. And that's the thing that, you know, sometimes the song, it's going to take you a long time, and you're going to have to go through a lot of stuff before you finally get to that thing that really matters, you know. But there was a dancer named Marie Chouinard, and she used to talk about getting down to the diamonds under your skin. And I think that that's true for writers. You're trying to find that truth, that thing that's so real and so perfect. And sometimes it does come in the moment, you know, like you're Miles Davis and you're out on the studio floor and that moment happens and there'll never be another one like it. And music is like that. But music is also something that Mozart, you know, there was crap that he went through when he was a little boy that made it so that by the time he was 27, 28 years old, he was coming up with stuff that no one else alive has ever come up with, you know, because of a process. So, you know, there's lots of different ways to skin musical cats.
I would love to learn from you. In fact, never mind, Evans. No, teach me. Evans didn't hear that.
Well, for each of you, and Rick, I'll just start with you real quick. What do you tell your students if they were to ask you, how do you know when a song is done? I mean, you must have your gauge, but I guess everybody would have their own gauge.
Well, I mean, the thing I always tell students is that, you know, musicians always try to superimpose themselves on the music, and that's not a good idea. What you're trying to learn how to do is to step back and let the music talk to you. And if you let the music tell you, then the song will eventually tell you, look, you can make it different, but it's not going to get any better. Like, you know, this is as good as it's going to get, you know, so it's finished. And it's time to move on to another one, you know. And I think the guys that love to jam, the improvising types of musicians, they love that liquidity, that moving from this moment to the next, you know, that moving forward. And I think all artists have that sense of, there's the horizon. Yeah, I want to go there. I really want to, you know, I have that sense of tomorrow, and I want to go there. And artists are like that, you know.
Me, I'm never done.
Yeah.
But I let it be done. I let it be, like Paul McCartney said, let it be. But most of the music that I do create in the moment, I always think of a movie that hasn't been made yet. You know, I think of a movie, and I make my surroundings like a movie. Or I'll watch some old TCM, Turner Classic movies that I used to love, like Laura, and the music they went with, because I play jazz also, so I listen to Venus, Goddess of Love, you know, Speak Low, you know, all that music, man. Oh, man, the jazz back in the days, man, and of course, classical music, you know. And one of my favorites, and I still would love to know what's his name, Klaus, I almost said Claude Dubois, that's wine.
Claude Debussy?
Yeah,
French guy.
you say Debussy, I say Debussy. I'd love to know what he was smoking to write Clair de Lune,
Yes.
because that's one of the
Oh,
greatest
yeah.
songs of all time.
It is amazing.
And
yes.
I always know his style when
Yes.
I listen to it. And there's a person, to me, he must have, they didn't even have TV then. So
Yeah.
what movies, or if not
Well,
opera, you know?
Well, Clair de Lune is Moonlight, and
Yeah.
and his writing was very programmatic. In other words, he would and the music that I love of his is Children's Corner and his suites, the Bergamasque suites, that kind of stuff. And he would think very programmatically, like if you were a ballet dancer and you were going to be trying to interpret something that was Moonlight, what would that sound like? And what would that sound need to do in order to allow the dancer to make the moves? So it was a very physical type musician, but his compositions, and I know why you like them, they have this really modern jazz sensibility in the harmonic structure. There's, oh man, like 11 chords and beautiful ninths and stuff that were, you know, harmonically, he was an advanced cat. Like, he was way ahead of his time. So, you know, you're touching on, we have another thing in common, not just Joe Walsh. Claude Debussy is one of my favorite composers.
I'm coming to another one here now, too.
All right.
So speaking of geniuses, 1992, you did an album, Out of the Blue, that paid tribute to Stevie Ray Vaughan, Wes Montgomery, and Jimi Hendrix,
Yes.
amongst others. So it's safe to assume you're a Jimi Hendrix fan?
Oh, yeah, how can you not be?
Okay,
You know,
so
yeah.
I'm going to turn it over to you now. This is going to become the Rik Emmett show here for a little while. Now, you know, Jimmy, the last public performance was with Lonnie.
I know that's an incredible story. It's
So what would you like to
fantastic.
ask Lonnie about Jimi Hendrix? There must be something you'd want to know, sir. You
Well-
go ahead and I'm going to have a sip of water.
Jeez. Well, how did that come about? That you were like, did he come to the club where you were playing, or how did that work?
Well, Eric and Jimmy were already friends. You know the story about the Animals, Chas Chandler.
Yes, yeah.
You know, who started
The manager
Jimmy's
of-
career. Yeah.
He was the bass player in
And the Animals.
Animals, and then he'd become a manager, and then he was the guy that brought Hendrix from America over to England.
So every time, so when Eric originally started with us, Jimmy was always wanting to support anything that he did. So his new band, new band, War. So Jimmy was supporting that and coming to all the shows without his guitar. And I finally said, "Hey man, you got to bring your guitar. You cannot come here without your guitar." So a lot of Eric's other friends, Janis Joplin, they all wanted to sit in and jam with this new band. You know, so Ronnie Scott was the place. So you had like George Harrison, Billy Preston. I guess they were working on some material then at that time, but they all came down. They were all in England at the time. They came down. I think Elton John was there. I knew who he was, but I didn't know who Janis Joplin was. Unfortunately, hey, she was American. I didn't know. But I mean, Elvis Presley, yeah, back then. The Everly Brothers. I knew the Righteous Brothers, Of course, James Brown, Little Richard, Richard Berry, Chuck Berry, and all the other Berries. I knew them all, but I did not know the new rockers, the American rockers. I just didn't. So, anyway, to make a short story long, Jimmy was the kind of person that he was very shy, and he was a totally different person when he would play. But come to find out that we passed each other, along back in the day. We played the same circuit. Before Eric got with us, we were playing what was called back then the Chitlin circuit.
All right, that R&B stuff for the
Yeah,
South.
R&B,
Yeah.
hard hard blues, which I didn't like the blues because I had to grow up in in a blues world.
Yeah, yeah.
You
You're
know,
looking
where
for
the-
something
yeah,
better and more modern and
Yes,
different.
Jimmy Reed, Bobby Blue Bland. I mean, the list goes on with
Yeah, yeah.
the people that I had to hear these albums that my parents would, you know, like would fight. I mean, that's personal, but they would fight, and everyone on the street would fight. Every time they would fight, all I could hear is, "You got me running, you got me high." I mean, that's all I would hear.
Yeah, yeah.
So when Eric asked me, "Why don't you like the blues?" I said, "It's no different from where you grew up in, Newcastle, mining, you know, coal mining company where everyone had the blues. That's why you like the blues." Well, it's the same thing. You know, it's not a color thing. The blues is not a color thing. The blues is blue. Blue feeling, which musically wise, that's a color that I can also pretty much describe how I would write a blues song, you know, a sad song. I love colorful, sad songs. I love ballads. Again, going back to Claude Debussy, you know. But anyway, Jimmy was a very, very shy person, great player. But that particular night, that last night, he didn't bring a lot of gadgets. It was just basically a simple amplifier and a simple guitar, and we played Mother Earth and by Memphis Slim. And unfortunately, that night, ironically, he went back to Mother Earth. And that scared me. You know, a person like me, I'm still young. I think that was my second time in England, and we took the first 747 Pan Am, and me flying on a big plane that to me shouldn't have even been in the sky. You know, and so there was a lot of fear around me, you know, and a lot of weird people flying on the plane, you know, because back then the Vietnam War was going on, and a lot of different wars on different turfs, and all these people were on the plane, you know. So it was just a lot going on. And when he passed away, and then other people started following it, and it just put fear in me. And I think that that helped me survive. To say to myself, why would anybody want to be dead to feel great? It didn't make sense to me, so I had the fear of God, and I just felt bad when he passed away. I started feeling scared for some reason or another, and that helped me to be able to project more music later on, like songs like "The World's a Ghetto" and just you know, I don't know. I can't explain it, only through music.
Yeah.
You know.
So, obviously, if you had the chance to play with Jimi Hendrix, you wouldn't have turned that down. But you know, he's.
Well, I don't know. You know, sometimes you're intimidated by the, you know, just how great someone is. You know, so I think there was a thing where Hendrix and Clapton didn't necessarily want to have to get up on stage together.
Right.
In those times, they would try to avoid each other because Jimmy was a little shy and a little bit afraid, and Clapton was sort of, you know, this English gentleman kind of guy. And here was Hendrix, and everybody went, oh, like I think Pete Townsend said to Clapton something like, "You got to see this guy, he's unbelievable." And Clapton went, "I just want to kill myself." I have a friend in Canada, a guy named Kim Mitchell, and one time we were up on stage, we were doing this guitar jam on this, you know, guitar night that was all these clinicians getting together to play and stuff. And a friend of mine, Steve Morse, you know who he is? He plays with Deep Purple now.
Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, so Steve was up, and he was staying at my place, and he was part of this night. And, you know, there's all these guitar players up on there, and Morse takes a solo. And Kim Mitchell looks at me, and he mimes taking out a saw and sawing off his own hand. Because it's just like, once Morse plays, if you're a guitar player, just kind of like, oh, you're going to be kidding me. Like, that's insanely good, you know. So there's that. I think guitar players do tend to intimidate each other, and Jimmy could be a fairly intimidating guy. Once he started to let loose, you know, and got past the shyness and just got inside the music, he was a monster, you know, like he could do things that nobody else could do, and hardly anybody's ever done since, you know. So.
He never liked the way he sang.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
We did a record with Eddie Kramer, and Eddie he was the Electric Leadland guy. We did Triumph did the Thunder 7 record with him, and Eddie said, yeah, he used to build a house out of sort of sound bats and stuff, so that Jimi could be inside to sing and no one would be watching him. You couldn't actually see him because he would be more comfortable and he'd get better takes that way. Because he just thought he had a horrible voice. That's why he liked Dylan so much, because when he heard Bob Dylan's voice, he went, I can do that.
And the writing.
And Dylan's very appreciative to this day for what he did all along the Watchtower.
It's just one of the greatest guitar songs ever recorded.
Is there any guitarist who you would want to play with?
Well, I've had the lovely, good fortune of getting to play with people like George Benson and Steve Morse I mentioned. And, I've never got to play with Pat Metheny. He's one of my favorite guitarists. I think of Pat as maybe, the modern day equivalent of, say, of a Claude Debussy. Like, Metheny is an artist in every sense of the word. But I think I'd be too intimidated. I think I'd kind of go, yeah, you know what? Let me just sit back and I'll play a blues, and then you just kind of do what you do, and then I'll just watch after a while. So.
Well, we had some of we put out an email blast, went out to everybody on the cruise asking them to send in questions if they wanted me to ask anything, and got quite a few. So I won't, we don't have time to go through them all. But here's a few. I'll hit you up, Lonnie, first. You had talked about Spill the Wine earlier, so somebody here, Lynn Rollins of La Jolla, California, she wants to know if it was about drug use or great sex. I don't know, I'm just asking.
It was only about wine.
It's all about wine?
That's
No,
all. Okay. All right. Okay, I will say something. Evans, close your ears. Are you good? Okay. I keep forgetting that the computer, you probably see more than me now. No, but actually it wasn't dirty. Although there was a young lady that was inside the vocal booth, and we won't talk about what she was doing with Eric Burden, but it made me spill wine looking through the window. I said, wow. And it went all into the board. And that's basically what it is now. The pearl, people think, is spill the wine, take that girl. It's not. It was Eric's accent. The pearl back in the 70s. Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
All right, cleared it up.
Do you know what the pearl is? You do?
We can guess.
For me, not going any further. Use your imagination. It was a female thing back then. And would you believe that was the B-side to one of our songs? That was the B-side to a song called Magic Mountain. That was before Magic Mountain was built. If you ever heard that song, so many groups have sampled our music, but the A-side was a song called Magic Mountain, which was sampled and re-recorded by a group called De La Soul.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They did Potholes in My Lana or whatever it did anyway. But so many of our songs were sampled until we ended up having to put an album out called Rap Declares War. A double album. And that wasn't even enough.
All right, I like this question. Rick, are you ready?
Yeah.
Do you still own the red spandex jumpsuit from the 80s that you wore in the 80s, and do you still wear it and slide around your house in your socks? It's from Roger the Iron Man. I believe he was from Long Island, New York.
Was that a Tom Cruise Risky Business kind of
maybe
movie with the sliding around in the socks?
Yeah.
No, I don't own it anymore. I will tell you a story, though. We had a trunk in the basement that had a lot of my clothes in it, my old stage clothes. And when my twin girls were sort of grade 8, I think it was, the grade 8 talent show at their school, they were going to do some sort of giant lip sync kind of show. And so they brought all over their friends, and they went through that trunk, and they got all of my stuff. And then they wore it that night when they did this lip sync thing. And I was sitting in the gymnatorium, and I'm sure other people have had this experience with their kids up on stage. And I was sitting beside a guy, and I used to go and play men's basketball on Tuesday nights in the gym with these guys. And they were just, dads in the neighborhood. And they didn't know who I was. They just figured I was this guy with long hair that. So I'm sitting beside one of the other fathers, and we're watching, and the kids are up there, and, one of them's wearing a sort of a three-piece orange suit. One of them's got, one of the spandex, the striped pant, spandex and all this stuff. And I lean over to the guy beside me and I go, you see all that stuff? Those were my clothes. And the guy kind of went, oh, jeez. Yeah, and I think we never really got everything back. And so somewhere along the line, the red jumpsuit went away. But I'm going to tell you this about the red jumpsuit, too, just so you know. I had 3 of those suits, and I bought them at a place in Toronto called Malabar's. It was like costumes, and they were dancers' outfits, like things. And they were like spandex. But the reason I bought them was, and I had a red one and a black one and a white one. And I could take them out on the road and play a show, and then I could wash them in the sink at the hotel and hang them in the shower, and then the next morning they'd be dry, and I'd have fresh clothes again. And so my dry cleaning bill was fantastic because I had these 3 spandex jumpsuits. So, yeah, it's a true story.
I'm sure it'll pop up on eBay somewhere down the road.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
someone in
things.
China will be bootlegging them.
Yeah, your Canadian accent is still
Oh,
strong.
yeah.
I can hear the Bootons and I hear it, man.
And
Well,
Lonnie,
I can still hear the Compton in you, buddy.
That's just honest in me.
And Lonnie, this one comes from Patricia Stewart of Chattanooga, Tennessee. During your long career, do you feel your success was from a God-given talent for a reason or an individual achievement success story via your own making?
Both.
Care to explain?
Well, I was definitely given a gift by God, that's for sure. I do believe in God, my God, and the achievement came from the strength that was given me, and the love of music, which is to me part of God. That's how much I love music. It is definitely powerful. Music is powerful, and once I took the role of making music, I became one with it. And you know how people say words are very strong? Well, anything that was written by me in the band definitely changed a lot of other people's worlds besides myself. So words are very powerful. So is music, very healing. So yeah, it's definitely an achievement, and it was definitely a God-given gift.
And Rick, back to you. Of all the
Wait a sec, that was a really good answer. I just want to let that one settle.
Yeah,
for a
that's
minute. That
true.
was good. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, that was nice. I like that.
well, then should I follow it up with who's your favorite hockey team, the Leafs or the Habs?
Yeah. Oh, he gets the profound ones, and I.
No, I wasn't going to ask that one.
Okay.
No, I was going to ask you, Rick, and it kind of dovetails what I just asked Lonnie. For you, your biggest influence on music, did that come from another professional player, or was it maybe a family member? What inspired you? When did you know that that was something that you'd want to do?
Ooh. Well, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, I think probably when I blew my knee out playing high school football, and I realized I was too small and too breakable to be a jock, to be. That was kind of when I made the transition. I'd always had music in my life. I'd sung in the church choir and the school choir, and I'd played guitar since I was about 10. I got my union card and played in like Jewish wedding and bar mitzvah bands when I was like 16, 17. And that was right around when I started to have very serious football injuries and stuff, and it was like, okay, well, I can't do the sports anymore, but I do not want to have to work ever for a living. I don't want to have to do like my dad, get up and go to work every day, and I don't want to do that. I want to play. And to me, music was play, and so that was the next logical thing to do. And, you know, I mean, I had all kinds of musical heroes from different walks of life. I had a very eclectic kind of taste. So, you know, I had classical records in my collection. But I mean, nobody my age escaped the whole thing of the Beatles and as an influence. And you know, I would say Paul McCartney is still an incredibly influential musician. But they just had the Grammys thing for Stevie Wonder. How can you not be in music and not think that Stevie Wonder is like just a genius, like an incredible? So, you know, I mean, I think of that period from about 68 through about 72 or 73. And there were so many artists that were so great. So many great records were made in that time period, you know. And that would include, you know, the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and you know, the Hendrix Clapton thing was a big thing for me as a guitar player. It was like the transition from, you know, Beatles-ish kinds of stuff to no, look what this thing can do, you know. And I was like, yeah, that's really something. My role models, like Ritchie Blackmore of Deep Purple, was heavily influential on me because of the phrasing and the precise approach, and I love Deep Purple. But then later, as I got older, I loved British progressive bands, and Steve Howe was this guitar player that just played so many different types of guitar and different styles. So he was probably the largest conversion kind of, right at that time when I was going, okay, I'm going to get serious about this. I would learn Steve Howe songs note for note, you know, and so that was probably my biggest role model. And I met him once in Seattle and had dinner with him. And then we exchanged some emails and stuff. And I wanted to talk him into trying to do a project together, and he told me I'd gone off the deep end. So that's a true story. Yeah, so that never happened. So there you go. That was a long answer, but
He's angry anyway. He's
strange British fellow, vegetarian, yeah.
drives to all his own gigs, rents a Cadillac every time he comes to the States, and drives around to his own shows in the Cadillac.
Does he really?
Yeah, and so and he told me this in an interview one time, and he loved talking about it. So one of the things that the company I work for, if you've got a project out, let's say, I will have you come in, or you can be at home, and I'll have you talk to radio stations all across the country, right? You know, 10 minutes in Seattle, 10 minutes in Denver,
Yeah.
from the comfort of your own home. So we had Steve Howe going to promote a Yes tour, and so a couple of the radio stations said to me, you got any good Steve Howe tidbits? I go, yeah, he loved talking about this thing. He got pissed off that they kept asking him about this. And like, how did they know? I go, well, you said it in an interview, and they get my interviews. And yeah, anyway.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that's what he does.
So
Rents a Cadillac.
he's got a little bit of anger in him.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. Well, I'm glad I didn't have to work
It was
with
nice
him.
until that point, though.
But isn't it a drag when your heroes turn into... Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
They do interviews and they spill this stuff, and it's worse than spilling wine.
Well, you could have gone on tour with him, and he might have sat in the back, and you could have been driving Mr. Howe around town. Anyway, I digress. So, bucket list, that was another big topic that came up from a lot of the folks on the cruise. Is there anything that remains on any of your bucket list? You both have been very successful. Can't go a day without hearing some of your songs on the radio. You're in the public eye. I mean, that's not the be-all and end-all, I know, but anything that you would like to do? And of course, through what you do, you've been able to travel the world. Anything else, things on your bucket list that you might want to accomplish someday, whether in or out of music?
Yes, no, in music. Because like I told you, I'm one with music. I would love to play piano as great as Bill Evans did. You know
Yeah,
Bill
good
Evans.
luck with that one.
Well, there it is. So I have more accomplishment. And while I'm still young, while I'm still 67 years young, I'm going to accomplish that. And I'm going to be great at it. And then finally, when I get there, I'm just going to say, now what next? Then I'll work on something else. It'll keep me alive till I'm about 100 and something.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. Then I'll become a full-fledged raw food vegan like my wife.
Wow. Cool.
Right now I'm just a vegan, a wine vegan.
And how about for you, Rick?
Well, I don't know. I mean, a bucket list would be something that then it's finite, and I think Lonnie and I have sort of been making the point that the thing that's one of the things that's so beautiful about music is that it has this infinite quality to it. So you're tapping into something that's there's always a tomorrow. There's always something else to do. You're always chasing something. If God is in music, then well, that's forever, and that's as big as it gets. And I tell students, how can you be so full of yourself? How can you not be humble in the face of that infinite challenge? That, like, yeah, you got to have an ego to chase it, but and to do well in this business, you have to have an indestructible kind of ego. But at the same time, you have to have this humility that you're chasing something. And as a songwriter, I'll often tell young songwriters, the question you always get is what's the favorite song you've ever written? And I go, no, the answer to that question is the next one. That's always the answer to that question. And if you don't answer it that way, you're not really a true artist. A true artist is always worried. So I don't want to make a bucket list and then get to the end of it. What does that mean? I don't want to ever get to the end of anything. I want to keep chasing tomorrow.
Well, there is no bucket list when it comes to music.
Right.
Because that keeps you around a long time, like you just said, the next, you always think on the creative end of it,
What do you think B.B. King is thinking? He's out there sitting on a chair, but he's not, he's chasing something still, I want to be like B.B. I want to be...
Write a song about a bucket list, and then that'll make it even better for you to forget about a bucket list.
You brought up an interesting point, about your students and stuff. Do you think if you were starting out today, you would have made it? I mean, it's a different world. I mean, the record labels are pretty much non-existent.
I don't admire them for the way that the music business has changed. And I think, ideally, if I could go back, I wish I had been maybe about 5 to 10 years older coming into the business. I think the world was a better place for the Mick Jaggers and the Paul McCartneys and those people that were into the record business when it truly became a kind of a record business. And the selling of albums and stuff. And so then, there was never any way that a band of my vintage, we started in 75 and started to have success around 78, 79, like Rolling Stone was never going to like us because they already had this generation of musicians that they revered. And so critics were never going to be accepting of that. And I think that now that the world has converted into the digital universe, it's so much harder for musicians. You can build a little niche and you can try to, penetrate from that point. But it's become very fragmented and globally competitive. And so it's really hard. Now, having said that, there's still tremendous music that gets made by young people, on their way in, and that's deserving of an audience, But it's just hard. The numbers game has just exploded exponentially, So I don't. I'm glad I was able to do it when I did, and I don't envy them trying to do it now. It's hard.
And if it makes you feel any better, Rolling Stone doesn't like anybody, so don't worry about it. They didn't like Led Zeppelin.
Well, okay, but I'm kind of They still put Pete Townsend on the cover, and they still put Mick Jagger on the cover, and there was a certain era of stuff that they revered it, and it became...
Yeah, they were Jan Wenner's friends.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah.
And as we go forward now into 2015, what's on the docket for you guys? Lonnie, what do you got going on, and going to be on the road?
I'm going to stay on the road. And like I told you before, my Rock and Roll Hall of Fans, this is it for me. And if I come up with any newer material, it'll be from jamming on stage. They will hear it first. Whoever I play for, they'll hear it first. And then if I remember it next time, then I'll let someone else hear it. Or it'll probably be something else. And that's the fun part. that's why I have so much fun on stage.
Yeah.
That's my playpen.
What's the saying?
Our playpen.
You get paid for the 22 hours of traveling and the 2 hours you do for free or something to that.
Hey, we won't go there.
I always liked
Where's my lawyer?
There was a song by Dan Fogelberg, Old Lang Syne, and he meets an old girlfriend, and she says, "Oh, you know, I hear your music," and in the song, in the lyric, she says, like, "Hey, you know, what's it like?" And he says, "Well, the audiences are heavenly, the traveling is hell," and that's, you know, I guess that's part of it for playing live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you two have survived, and you've got a lot of shows upcoming. You've been doing these acoustic duos with Dave Dunlop,
Yep.
and so you're going to be doing that. You can actually go to Daryl's house May 16th.
Yeah. Pauling, New York. Yeah,
Pauling, New York.
Yeah. And we're in St. Louis and Dallas in
New York
March.
City
Those
show?
shows are already sold out, and can't remember the name of that club in New York City.
Highline Ballroom.
Thank you. Yes, boy, you've done your homework. That's great.
So,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
nice
we
venue.
get around. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. We're looking forward to seeing you. You know, I'm sure there's some people here that are curious about it. We were talking off mic. In 2008, Triumph got together for 2 shows, one in Sweden, one in Oklahoma. And that was kind of it. And people had kind of thought, hey, well, finally they've put differences behind them. They're going to go forward, but not to be. And maybe you just give them the quick one on that.
Yeah, I mean, the quick one is that, you know, the drummer Gilmore doesn't really, like, he's not into it. He's got another life, and it's a really good one. And in truth, if you're a drummer in a rock band, and Triumph was a relatively unique circumstance that he sang half the material. So a drummer that sings, you have to be in really good shape to cut, you know, a 90-minute, you know, 2-hour show when you're drumming and singing half the stuff. So when we did those 2 shows, you know, he worked out for like 2 months getting ready for those and did them and went, okay, I'm not doing that ever again. That's cool. That's a lot of work, you know. Who can blame him? You know, he's still got younger kind of teenage kids at home. He's got fantastic businesses that are up and running. He's making a lot of money, and he likes to go and play golf with Alex Lifeson and Rush, and Tommy Cochran. You know, Life is a Highway. Tom, him and Gil are best friends, and Tom's got a house in Austin, and they go like, hey, let's go to Florida and play golf for 2 weeks. Okay, and they fly off, and that's what they do. And so, you know, he's got money. He doesn't really, you know, and they don't feel the music the same way that, you know, Lonnie and I were talking about that sense of, you have to play, you have to make music, you know, he doesn't feel that same drive, that same passion for it, you know, so why would you want to force somebody to do something they don't want to do? Yeah.
No, exactly.
Speaking of Tom, or another Tommy, in Canada, Tommy Chong. So we've been touring with Tommy
Yes.
and Cheech and Chong, yeah, for 2.5 years now, you know, and that's been fun. And after you leave that show, you're like on the fog away, all the fog, and you finally go home. But it's great. It's funny and fun, and it's pretty much like a Broadway play.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's how you described it.
Yeah, and it's a Broadway play though, but without the pamphlet, you know, to read what the next segment is, and it's fun. What they want to do is they want to do a sequel, Up in Smoke sequel. So I just say good luck on that one. We better do it before we have to make that a later bucket list. We need to move on that one.
Yeah, got to get going on it.
Yeah.
And once again, you were nominated for induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
3 times.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Again, to me, Rock and Roll Hall of Fans. That fame thing is cool. It's good to win anything sometimes, you know, have things in your house, but those things, you know, where I live in California, earthquake can shatter that, and you know. But Rock and Roll Hall of Fans, they're more faithful, you know.
Well, see, I told you they'd show up. You know?
All right.
I knew that. I paid them all.
Well, we thank you both. Is there any last minute words? Anything else you got going on? We need to plug away, but
One day we're gonna jam together. and then he's
Yeah, it
gonna
sounds
write.
like it,
I
yeah.
enjoy it.
Hey,
There
I
we
did
go
it.
again.
See, there it is. There's the song. Right there.
Spill the
Spill the
water.
water. There it is.
Well, I thank you both, and Rik Emmett, of course, Triumph fame, but so many other albums on his own, and a professor and everything else he's got going on, and Lonnie Jordan keeping the war flame alive. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, guys.